From the 6th till the 10th of July 2026, the 31st International Congress of Vexillology will be taking place in Paris. This is my presentation for ICV31 and it's about flags on trucks. So how did this all come about? It's traveling around Europe by car, you often see trucks with flags on their sides or elsewhere on them, and for example this one, and this is MJ Transport, and I looked it up online, their website, and it also has the same flags on it, so apparently they have a message with these flags. Other companies as well, for example this one, it's a Belgian company which transports to Switzerland, so they have both flags on the side. Another example here is this company, Dutch company, which, well, as far as I can tell, this is meant to be a reference to the Dutch flag, the red, white and blue, and so there's another example there. Cross flags on the photo on the left, and also this Polish truck here with an American flag is quite a different meaning of a flag altogether. So we have the same transport modes of transport, all with different kinds of flags on them. So I started thinking, what could this be about? This company sort of gave me a clue, because I found an older picture on the right hand side of this a company which is a company from the Alsatian company, and it travels to Sweden. It says so on the notice above the cabin as well. It travels to Sweden, Italy. Italy didn't get a flag, but so it has something to do with the destination of the trucking company. On the other hand, on newer pictures, and that's the left photograph, you can see there's no longer a flag of Sweden, but a flag of Ingwilla, also with a shield on it, and this is where the company is from, so it has more to do with origins. So actually they changed the meaning of the flags on the side from saying something about destination to more clearly mentioning the origin. So I started thinking, okay, there could be something here. How can I research this? And of course I wasn't going to stand next to the motorway watching all the trucks pass by, but there are other people who do do that and take pictures of that. They're called truck spotters, and there's many websites, also on Flickr, a lot of people sharing their pictures. For example, we love taking truck photos, well that's clear. But also this man here, Jürgen Kellers, and I contacted him if I could use his photos for this research, and he said yes. There's about 141,000 photographs on his website, but I used a bit less than 10,000. So this is not a quantitative inventory of all photographs and all trucking companies. It's more of a qualitative model to get a feeling what kind of messages, what kind of usage can we deduct from all this. I also use another website called transportphotos.nl, because you can look up a company's name and find photographs. So my research question which came out of this was, what functions do flags serve on European trucks, and how do those functions relate to existing theories of flag use in the vexillological and sociological literature? And for this, this is the presentation, 7 categories that I'm going to discuss, and later on I'm going to make a sort of a link with the semiotic framework of Semioc, and then I have 3 perspectives on this whole body of knowledge. So to start with the first one, flag as origin. So we saw a few examples of that earlier on. For example, here this is the Scottish flag. here also on a Swedish truck, so there's a logo on one hand and the Swedish flag on the other. Here's a Czech flag and a walking strawberry, and here are some Dutch flags again on the back. I also saw one from Brabant, but I wasn't able to take a picture of that. And Friesland, also a Dutch province, but also in other countries, for example this one from Brittany, or a European flag even, all sort of saying something about where they're from. There's also another shape where this comes back, and that is when they use the flag in a logo. Both of these categories have a sort of a nationalist goal, so to refer to the nation where the company is from, not being very clear about it, but more in a sense like Michael Billig wrote in his Banal Nationalism book from 95, saying, well, actually by using them in a sort of a non-expressive way is also a very good way to remind people of the nationalist perspective. So there's the other example. So these are flags within the company's logo. Walter Koop's is a very common sight on motorways. Here this also I think is a reference to the Dutch flag, but also in German flags is another German one, and European. There's also a little shield on the back, by the way. Here this is a company from North Rhine-Westphalia, so there's that flag on it. A company from Bremen, it's not the exact flag, but a clear reference of course to the Bremen flag. British examples as well, and this one is a bit of a border case, I think, or a cross-border case, in the sense that, well, of course there are lots of flags there on the one hand, but this is a Dutch company, even called Trans-Holland. I think it's a reference to a Dutch flag, but well, we can have a discussion about that. So next to those nationalist perspectives on using the flag from the country where you're from, you can also use a flag of the country where you're going, and sort of, well, it's sort of a visual representation of the company's activity. A company going from Finland to Germany, for example, or one from Poland to Ireland or to Sweden. A British company traveling to France, and other combinations as well. So this is more of a reference to the route that the company is taking and transporting goods. I hope this is not a route, because that would be quite a detour, but still I think it's clear what where they're going on their way to Italy and Spain. And for example, this one also, well, quite funny in the sense that, of course, just like flags, trucks have two sides, and one side is going from the left to the right, from the Netherlands to Sweden, and on the other they're going back from Sweden to the Netherlands. So, and of course this one, well, goes all around. So there's another, well, sort of a category that is a bit like it, but then it uses maps as well to denote the countries. So it's not just a flag, but it's a flag within a map. Here are the four countries there. This trucking company is moving goods. Here's one that goes from the Netherlands to Italy. Tool station apparently goes from France to the Netherlands. So those are two sort of route kind of route or destination kind of categories. So there's a fifth category which I called the flag as advertisement or image, and it's not really reference to the company per se, but more to the image that the company, the country has. For example, the American flag that we saw on the Polish truck, it's more a reference to sort of an image of the United States. It's nothing to do with the United States, not going there or anything. this one as well, but you also see the Italian flag often in advertisements like this. Of course, this has to do with a delicatessen and that sort of thing. So that's the fifth category. The sixth category that you can also see is the flag as a logo. This has a sort of a longer history. It has to do with shipping companies, starting in the 19th century, that had flags with their own flags, for the house flags for their companies, and sometimes this has been transported to road transport as well. For example, the most famous, of course, is Peninsula and Oriental, using the Spanish and the former Portugal flag. So you see that on their ships, but also on their trucks. Hamburg Süd used to have its own ship house flag, as we see on the picture top right, but now it's also still on the seas in the form of a logo and also transported over land. There's Holship, which probably also has a maritime background, but Hogendijk I don't know about. So these, and there's here is another border case, in the sense that, to me it looks like a flag, but I'm not sure. It's also a shipping company going from Ireland to the rest of Europe, but so that's the sixth category. Seventh category is more the language category. Also on websites, also in the public space, you see flags being used to denote a certain language, and we see the same on trucks as well. I refer here to Sebela's work on the changing connotation of flags from the nation to something else. In this case, a language on trucks, on vans, etc. So we have 7 different categories of trucks, flags on trucks. So what I've tried to do is make a link between these categories and the CBOC's framework for semiotics, so for signs, and I want to use that as a sort of a language to translate from the flags, the truck flags, to the semiotics in general. So if you look at a signal, according to CBOC, is something which attracts attention or calls for an action or a reaction. Symptoms, an involuntary sign which says something about the bearer without them perhaps even meaning to compart that information. So you can sort of make a connection between the categories for flags and the categories from CBOC, but also this has also already been done by Knowlton in his 2012 article, but he used only 4 of these categories, and he used them on real flags. I think that if you use them on flags on trucks, you can actually use all 6 categories. I'm going into that in more detail in the article, of course. So if you put it all in one table, you don't have to read all of this now. You can pause here or come back to this sheet later. But for example, if you look at the origin beside the logo, it's a symbol in the sense that it says something about the identity of the bearer, but it's also a sort of a symptom in the sense that it is a involuntary sign which says something about the company's roots. And this way you can use every category and describe it with the semiotic categories of CBOC. There's another, there's a third column there as well. There's another way of looking at this, and I also already sort of referred to it when I went through the 7 categories. There's there's a sort of a nationalist perspective that you can have on this, using the national flag to say something about your own nationality or where the company is from. It's a sign of Michael Billig's banal nationalism. But it's also there's also the sort of a transnational, where it's not the country where you're from that is important, but the flags are sort of on the same level. It has also different countries. They're on the same level. So this is more of a cosmopolitan vision, which is well, a bit like Ulrich Beck mentioned in his book about the cosmopolitan vision. So there's the national and the transnational. There's a sort of an opposition between the two. Do you use it in a national sense or the transnational sense? But there's also a third way of looking at these flags, and that's sort of a post-national perspective. That some of these categories are just used for commercial goals. For example, the marketing use of the image of a country or flag, or the use of language. It's more of a post-national or commercial view. And actually, if you take it a step further, you might even say that all of these flags are in the commercial realm, because why else would you put this flag on the side of a truck? You want to say something, you want to sell the route that you're driving, you want to sell the transport and make sort of an ad out of that, or you're saying something about the country where you're from and you're using the image of that country in a commercial sense. So if you put all these two oppositions, so the national against the transnational and the national transnational against the post-national commercial view, you get a sort of a triangle. So this is all of that in one image. Also, this does sort of bring about a question about, well, whether or not this is still vexillology. It's not about waving flags. It's not about the actual flags anymore. It's more about the symbolism. I think it's a bit like Scott Gunther used to argue that the meaning of flags is changing, and that other people in this example, trucking companies, transport companies, are using the meaning of the flags for their own purpose. I think it's also, as Gunther says, really part of the vexillology that we still have to discuss, and where there's a lot of discussion still possible, but hopefully we can have that discussion in the near future based on this research. So what have we seen here and to conclude this presentation? We've seen research into a number of flags on trucks based on a corpus of a few thousand photographs. I've made a taxonomy of this, 7 categories of flag use, made a link with a more general language of semiotics, so that we can sort of broaden the discussion a bit further, and also perhaps to use in later research. And finally used all this information to get to 3 perspectives on how you can look at this use of flags on the side of trucks and international transport. And in this sense, well, it's I think it's an interesting article, and I hope to have a further discussion with you if possible. Finally, I'd like to end with still a waving flag. So here's a video of the P&O flag waving proudly in the wind on one of their ships. So this was my presentation, and thank you for your attention.